Antoinette Lattouf is in the studio with me today.
We've swapped roles.
We have swapped roles. That's why I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today. Of course, I've admired you for a long time and watched the trials and tribulations over the last couple of years. I know you've got a new book out, and we had a conversation about that as well at the time when you were writing that, which is wonderful to see all of those stories put together. But, yeah, our roles are a bit different today.
Yes.
But just to be clear, I am not a journalist. I'm a politician, trying to talk to people about how politics can be a force for good. And one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you in here today was because whether we're talking about politics or we're talking about the media, there is so much negativity. There is so much division.
And there's such a huge trust deficit.
And there is such a huge trust deficit. Bang on, right? You just nailed it. And yet that doesn't serve the people's interest, right? Politics has to be done better. I think the media needs to be done better if we're to deal with the issues that, you know, people are really struggling with.
Yeah, and neither of us are billionaires.
And
we're both trying something different.
That's right. But, you know, I think to myself that it's the billionaires actually who would love for everyone to put their hands up in the air and go, oh, the media sucks. You can't believe anything in the media. Politicians are all liars. Don't listen to them. The billionaires want us to vacate the field.
Yes, the division works.
Yeah.
Pitting people against each other works. Creating a larger trust vacuum serves the interests of a few. But
Exactly.
I think more and more people are cottoning on to the fact that this does not serve our democracy and this does not serve lay people or the issues, the very real issues that they face.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, you obviously had a very famous departure from the ABC.
As my daughter says, I am Australia's most famous sacked person, which is a very weird thing to try and put on LinkedIn.
Yes, that is. I don't know what the algorithm would do with that, actually. Kids are just so good, aren't they? At just absolutely saying it as it is.
Yeah, the zingers.
Yeah, the zingers. They're great at the zingers. Well, let's start with that because I obviously, yes, you as the most famous person sacked or someone who's had to depart the ABC, you've now got your own podcast, you're writing books. My first question really is, do you still see yourself as a journalist?
Look, the title of our podcast, We Used to Be Journos, is a little bit tongue-in-cheek because, of course, we're journalists. We've worked, both Jan Fran and I have worked across, between both of us, pretty much every newsroom, every medium, so many programs between us. We have so much experience. But the state of media at the moment, we don't necessarily identify with or want to align with. And so it was a cheeky way to put ourselves at arm's length because we are critiquing and trying to promote media literacy, but also acknowledging that we were part of legacy media and we built our platforms and a lot of our audiences via legacy media. So it's an acknowledgement that we're trying to, I guess, we straddle both worlds in a way because of our proximity to legacy media and the way we reach new audiences and use social media. I think journalism is in a state of crisis at the moment for a range of reasons because the business model has been under threat with the rise of this little thing called the internet, where advertising dollars are going to Google and social media, where they used to traditionally be spent on car ads in newspapers and television commercials. Funding good journalism costs money and it's harder to fund journalism. And at the same time, you have the public broadcaster, which is part of the reason I took them to court, which really should be the bastion of public interest independent journalism because they don't face those commercial interests because they are taxpayer funded. And so when you're in a position where the ABC has shown time and time again that it has a jelly spine, whether it's in response to attacks by conservative governments, attacks by the Murdoch press, attacks by or pressure by certain lobby groups. then we're really in a state of crisis.
you know-
And then just whack in, AI.
Yeah.
And that's the latest thing.
Yeah.
And so it's a difficult time to be a journalist, and we don't see ourselves, or we don't aspire to operate or work within the parameters or the ecosystem of legacy media, or what we like to call establishment media, because we don't think establishment media is serving audiences.
And when we say establishment, we mean the radios, the TVs, the newspapers, even though they're still online, right?
Yeah.
But that kind of old school, traditional way. I mean, it's interesting because I've been in politics some time now and have seen the way the media has changed, and political correspondents have changed the way they engage with the things the parliament does, with politicians, with the community. I mean, we're now seeing more and more, not just thinner newspapers, shorter articles, the kind of 24-hour media cycle. We're seeing journalists not just going to a press conference and writing up a story. They're then getting into the podcast studio or on their phones and doing a self video. To put up on social media.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy? I think you and I both started our respective jobs about 20 years ago. I entered journalism about 20 years ago. You entered politics about 20 years ago. To think, like, it would have been unthinkable that the two of us would be sitting here having this conversation with you interviewing me.
Yeah.
With the politician interviewing the journo/used to be journo.
Yeah.
The entire dynamic between journalists and the media has changed in many ways for the worse, I think.
It's that kind of clickbait, distraction, having to get the loud. It's almost as if the system is now all geared to the loudest voice, right?
Yeah.
And I think, back to your point about the role of the public broadcaster, one of those roles is really to ensure that it's not just the loudest voice that gets covered or that gets heard. And politicians fall into that category too.
Yeah. But do we run the risk of being even more tribal, or have media and politicians always sort of operated in camps? Like, some would argue, like, would you, for example, have someone in this seat on your podcast from the Australian newspaper? Would I say yes to a politician? Actually, I've never been asked by a politician, another politician, to be on their podcast. So let's, like, if an independent or One Nation asked me to be involved, like, who we choose to engage with, does that run the risk of that further tribalism and division? Because I'm not sure you'd have someone from the Australian in this seat, and I'm not sure I'd have someone from One Nation where you're sitting and say yes to.
That's an interesting point, and I'm going to think about that. I think about who it is that I would invite from the Australian. But it's interesting because so much of, I've criticised the Murdoch press a lot. I think the influence that they've had on not just the media landscape, but particularly politics and the kind of the electioneering and politicking that they've participated in, not just in Australia. I mean, they've done this. The UK, obviously, the US is a classic example. But so much of the front page now seems to be less news, more commentary.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd argue maybe that's because that's what people want to read.
Well, I think a couple of reasons. It's news disguised, it's opinion disguised as news to try and either set the agenda. Also, opinion is cheaper to make. Like, I can sit here and I could quickly turn around a 600-word rage piece with very little information, very little evidence, than it would to actually go out and collect data, read reports, look at financial statements. Like, real journalism and public interest journalism takes time, and it can often be hard. And sometimes it doesn't land. It doesn't necessarily click away. And so I think two things are happening. You could have political ideologies at play, but also fewer resources and wanting to spend less time on journalism. I'm just going to go back to one of the earlier things you said about, do you consider yourself a journalist? Yes, I am obviously a journalist, but Jan and I want to be the type of journalist where we are forthcoming. we are not neutral. We are not neutral to
and
facts.
that's the point you're saying in terms of being unashamedly, well, you will choose who you have a conversation with.
Yeah, and we're not neutral to the evidence. And so, for example, and one of the most telling things, like during the genocide in Gaza, having to stay neutral in the face of grave injustice, it's like, well, you don't stay neutral in you look where the weight of evidence is, and that doesn't mean. I'll start that sentence again. For so long, journalists have gone, oh, we've got to be in the centre. And we've got to, if these people say this, and we've got to go to the other people who say that because they're allowed to. And so for years, we had climate change deniers given equal weight to overwhelming evidence.
Yes.
And recently at the National Press Club, when they had the new Israeli ambassador espouse horrific, terrible propaganda for half an hour off the back of however many journalists they've killed, Jan Fran and I joked and was like, it's crazy in the face of evidence to have somebody to go, oh, well, we have to balance it out, because the National Press Club organisers came out and said, well, previously we've had this person from the United Nations and this person from a Palestinian group, so we're giving it balance. And then we laughed and said, hey, that's crazy. That's like giving a mad climate denier a platform because you gave someone who actually has credibility and evidence, and they did. We looked back.
I was going to say, I think that's happened a few times.
It has happened a few times.
I think that's happened a few times. And it is interesting, isn't it? That kind of like public interest journalism is about facts.
Yes.
It is about news. It is about how this issue is impacting this particular group of people or the community, or how it's giving weight to a particular decision being made, how it impacts people. There's nothing wrong with opinion. It's just not the same thing.
It's not the same thing. And giving false balance or pressing your fingers on the weight to appear more balanced when the weight of evidence is imbalanced. You have to follow the weight of evidence. So I guess when we look at the role we play as journalists, we just want to be far more honest. We intend to be fair. We want to follow the facts and we want to be accurate, but we are unashamedly open about the fact that we are progressive. We are progressive and we care about human rights, and we won't advertise or collaborate with any companies that emit fossil fuels or from the gambling industry. So we have our we have our values, and I think if outlets are more honest about who they are and what they are, rather than like SMH or the 9 newspapers have like independent always. It's like, really? Are you beholden to your advertisers?
It's interesting because I was watching that recent documentary over the weekend on the Murdoch dynasty. I can't get enough of the success, the real life succession story, and some of the things that have come out through the court case, where Rupert and Lachlan took the rest of the family siblings to court to fight over who would control the board when Rupert dies. The things that had come out through the court case, one of them was very clear positioning from Rupert, the senior Murdoch, saying the reason that he wanted Lachlan to be in control of the company when he dies and not James or the other siblings is because he was worried that they would go to the left or to the centre rather than keep it to the right.
Yeah.
So here you have one of the most powerful media moguls in the world.
He's so open.
He's so open about it.
He's so open about his agendas. He's so pro-Israel. He's open about his interests in fossil fuels and denying climate change. He doesn't even want his kids having any chance of saying, yeah, actually maybe we could cover something else for a little while. Yeah. Exactly. And so I think audiences have cottoned on. I think we need to give audiences more credit that they are more skeptical, but they're not stupid. And so I think we need to be honest about our interactions. Like even this interaction, you're in my book. I have respected your work. I not a Greens Party member, but I would say yes to you and I wouldn't say yes to Angus Taylor.
Yeah.
And I'm unashamed about that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm open about that.
And I think that's refreshing, and that's important. Let's talk about the book.
Sure. Yeah.
You've called it Women Who Win, and it's full of stories of a variety of different types of cases. You won your case.
Yes.
It was it was a long ordeal.
Yes.
And a hard ordeal. Remind me, how long was the trial? How many days of trial?
The trial was 7 days, and then there was also, that's at the federal court, and there was also 2-day hearing at the Fair Work Commission. So I guess we had like 2 stints in different courts.
Yeah.
So the trial lasted entirely 9 days over a 5-day contract. Which is crazy when you put it in those terms. And then some people will be like, why did she fight so much over a 5-day contract? Like, it's not even a big deal. It's like, well, it's what it represented was a far bigger deal than those days, or even me.
Yes. And it was such a public thing. And I remember talking to you afterwards, and you were saying that this was...
Because I interviewed you for the book.
Because you interviewed me for the book, exactly. And you were saying, part of that was if people had seen it, what happens if you didn't stand up and do something about this, right? Like, what message does that send?
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's the main reason I did it, because this was quite early on. It was December 2023. So 2 months after the October 7 attacks, and Israel's reaction was enormous, disproportionate, and included many documented war crimes. By then, thousands of children had been killed. At least 100 journalists had been killed. The evidence was mounting already. But journalists were still felt incredibly restrained to report what had happened, because October 7 was also large-scale an atrocity. So you had 1 day of atrocities, which absolute atrocities and war crimes were committed, and then daily atrocities for 2 months that followed. And the fact that me sharing a Human Rights Watch post, me sharing concerns for children who were being starved, which was documented by Human Rights Watch, reported by the ABC, the fact that that was considered contentious, the fact that I had talked about IDF soldiers using rape as a tool of war, which they have for decades, and we now know, we've seen it in plain sight, the way they've used rape of prisoners. So my only mistake was being right early and being brave enough to say it.
Yeah.
And so if I hadn't stood up and defended myself, that chilling effect, which was already in place, would have had, I think, an even greater chilling effect on people.
Do you think it would have created the same reaction if you'd been a bloke?
I don't think I would have been fired if I had been a bloke, firstly. I don't think I'd been fired if I don't think I'd been treated as awfully if I not only was a bloke, but if I wasn't someone with a Middle Eastern background myself. I think both of those things cast me as someone who's easily disposable, but also somebody who can't be trusted near a microphone, even though nothing I did on air was a problem, because I was doing a lifestyle program, playing music and talking about very light Christmassy stuff.
I was going to say, it was just before Christmas. Well, it was the Christmas show, basically.
It was a Christmas show. I wasn't even talking about the Middle East.
Yeah.
And so the way I was cast aside as a problem, distrustful, as came out in the emails and on the stand, I was an activist, which again is a term that's really weaponized usually against women or people from minority backgrounds, because we can't be trusted to be objective. We can't look at the facts, and we're too emotional, or we're too attached to it.
Yes. Yes.
So no, I don't think, and and that's part of the reason I wrote this book, because all of the women in this book who won their various things wouldn't have had these challenges if they weren't a woman.
Yes, and that's what's interesting about this, is there's some clear similarities that run through most, if not all, of these stories, right? What are the things that stand out to you of a woman who's decided she's got to take this on and call it out?
Yeah.
When you've interviewed people and you've gone through this book,
yeah,
like what are the 2 or 3 key things that everybody said?
One of the things everybody said was they all talked about how hard it is and was, and that it came at a cost. All of them, despite their wins, had a cost.
So winning is a
It's fraught in many ways.
It's fraught, but it's only a word.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the reason I decided to title the book even before I had won, because I decided that sticking up for myself and not backing down and not being discarded was a win in itself. I know that might seem like, oh, wow, you got the participation ribbon. You gave yourself a participation ribbon before the race was over. Maybe. But the notion of winning is so fraught and complex. Another thing was understanding that they may not reap the benefits of their win. Everybody had this sense that, yes, I won, but did I really win? And for some of the women, I mean, I interviewed many, but there were other women I profiled who are not with us anymore. And many women didn't bear the fruits of their labor. Like they weren't able to revel in their success. And I wrestled with that too. I was like, I don't want to be a martyr. That sucks. Like I'd like to cruise a little bit more comfortably and navigate life a bit more comfortably. And finally, the reason I also wrote this was other women helping them get through it. The support of other women, or the inspiration from other women. I think that would be probably a common thread. You know, whether they knew it or not, whether they reached out or not. Like I've over the 20 years only met you once at an event. But I followed your case, and the way you took on a part of law which was usually hostile to women or used against women.
Defamation law.
You don't realise how much courage is contagious. You don't realise how much people draw strength from you. And so when I say turning to other women, sometimes it was having the overt support of other women. Other times it's like,
she's done it, so I can have a go.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just reflecting on that, the cost. We talked about, you know, the trial was long.
Yeah.
You've had to, you know, how and the process. None of this is easy, right? But it is important whether you win or not, whether you'd won or not. Yeah. It's important because if you don't have a go, you know, what chance does you know, a Lebanese Australian schoolgirl have?
Yeah.
When she's in the classroom and says, "Oh, hang on a minute, what's going on in why is you know, my grandfather's town being bombed?"
Yeah.
And being told to shut up.
Exactly. I think obviously for the younger Antoinette didn't have somebody to look towards. Part of the reason I got into the media was to tell stories and be a presence at a time post-September 11 where if you were Arab or Muslim, you were flattened into a threat or horrible sort of stereotypes and dehumanized. So on the one hand, I know that has been impactful for people in my community, but more broadly, because what it did do was also set a legal precedent in employment law, because the right to voice a political opinion hadn't been tested before the federal courts under, Section 772 of the Fair Work Act. And so now there is legal precedent that you can't be targeted, or you shouldn't be fired for holding or expressing a political opinion, whether that be about the environment or immigration or fossil fuels or anything. You reserve the right to have a political opinion and not be fired for it. And so I know that this is being studied in law schools, because I'm told it's being studied by barristers, and the law firm that represented me says they get calls almost daily, like the Antoinette case. We believe we've been mistreated, or we believe we've been fired because of our political opinion.
That's a really tangible result.
Yes,
a really tangible result. We just flip back to where that now means, where you now are in all of this. You've won the case. You've written the book. You're doing this other work as a someone critical of the media, but also people are tuning in and listening to you because you are unashamedly direct about what you believe, even when the facts are as they are.
And that's why I think if you are honest and with the audience, and they know that you will be fair and driven by facts, I think audiences are smart enough to know that nobody is truly objective. Like, we do not come out of this world.
We're all human.
We're all human. We all feel, we all have upbringings, we all have connections, we all vote, we all make choices about what cheese we buy. We all have opinions. And to suggest that we are these just like straight rulers and we just, it's nonsense. It's something that was crafted by straight white men. And apparently only straight white men can be truly objective, and the rest of us, you know, we bring too much baggage.
But this is actually why we need diversity in media. A diversity of voices, a diversity in the size and scale and the reaches of the media.
Diversity of outlets.
Outlets.
Yeah.
Or that is how you make sure that overarchingly there is a rich media fabric by which the community can tap into and listen to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because at the moment we have the second most concentrated media in the world, second to Brazil only. And so the Murdoch press and four newspaper groups. It's not only the Murdoch press, but it's Seven West Media, 9 newspapers, buying 9 television. And so what you then have is not only a disproportionate few setting the agenda, you also have parts of the political class that run scared of a Murdoch smear campaign, or politicians acting to appease or cozy up to certain parts. Like the relationship between media and politicians in this country is too entwined. So we're not hearing these rumblings or concerns by the government or large establishment media, because at the moment that cozying is working.
Yes.
And so that's why there haven't been calls for a Murdoch Royal Commission have been slapped down.
I know. It was like 500,000 people signed a petition, and I mean I still get emails on a regular basis, week in, week out, from members of the community saying, we want a royal commission, we want a royal commission. And neither Labor nor Liberal will touch it.
Yeah, because it's probably they're thinking donor suicide, political suicide because of a smear campaign that will come. I'm not sure. That's just my instinct. Even with the ABC, the judgment from Justice Rangier was clear that the ABC, not only did they capitulate to pro-Israel lobbyists, they sacked me to try and they were his words, beat a story that was coming about the Australian, right? And so ever since that, the court case was never able to, and it wasn't what it was examining, who leaked the fact that I had been sacked to the Australian because there was an article about me before I'd even gotten home. Since it's all come to light, the ABC gave this apology. They go, we're going to make our social media rules stricter. It's like, well, the social media rules were never broken. They were never the problem. The problem was at the top of the organisation. The problem is capitulating to lobbyists and being scared of Murdoch press. The fact that the ABC itself has not yet investigated who was talking to the Australian. Why is the Australian, who almost exists to bash the ABC and undermine its credibility?
As someone who has to sit in Senate estimates,
you see it.
I see it firsthand.
All the time.
I see it firsthand. It's just like, and I'm almost at a point now where I see something come on the screen on the ABC or on the radio, and I'll often mention to my husband or my staff and say, that'll be raised at Senate estimates.
Yeah, because
you can tell which things the Australian newspaper are going to pick up, whip up, put up in lights. It is a business model for the Murdoch press to attack the public broadcaster.
It is. And the public broadcaster has not shown evidence that it can withstand it, or that it's interested in looking in its own backyard and going, okay, how do we fix this? And that's the frightening state of affairs that we're in. And again, audiences have cottoned onto that. And I think that what you and I share is we want the ABC to be stronger. This is not about an ABC bashing exercise. If the public broadcaster isn't stronger, if our democracy isn't operating as best it can, then we all suffer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of the ABC. We need it. We absolutely need public broadcasting. And for all the reasons that you're saying, that the business model of legacy media has fallen away, the advertising model, that if we don't, if we want good quality public interest journalism, actually it's got to be publicly funded. And so that's what we need. So we don't want to burn the house down.
No.
We want to we need some renovations and
Yep.
and some it needs some of the foundations fixed.
I was just I'm playing journo and producer while I sit here. We mentioned in passing that you were in my book and then you took on a case, but there might be some people listening who don't know the intricacies or what it was that happened in your defamation case. Are you happy to talk about that?
Well, I think that's an interesting one because it really does relate to the media and how the media was used actually. You know, my parliamentary colleague at the time, David Leyonhjelm, attacked me verbally in the parliamentary chamber, and it had been going on for some time. But this particular day, it was pretty horrible. We were voting on a motion in relation to violence against women and stopping violence against women. And, you know, there'd been all these kind of sexist slurs and sexual harassment going on for quite some time. The boys in the chamber, you know, really trying to shut the young woman up, being me. And so he yelled out in the middle of this debate that I should stop shagging men. And it was just kind of a lightning bolt moment for me that for years I'd been putting up with this sexualized bullying, that I'm not really worth being there as a politician because I'm not a serious player because I'm a young woman who had some fuckability, frankly. Like that, that is ultimately what was going on. Yeah. A male colleague of mine, in the midst of the case, actually said to me, he said, "I just don't understand these right-wing blokes. They can't work out if they hate you or want to fuck you."
Probably a combination of the two.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was such a light bulb moment for me because I was like, oh my God, that's what people think. Like that's what my entire political career, all the things that I'm doing, that's what people are talking about.
Yeah.
Like that is so undermining of the job that I need to be doing here.
Yeah.
Right.
And so ordinarily that is protected under parliamentary privilege,
yes.
right? So if it's said, but then he came out and repeated it.
So I'd asked for an apology, right, in the chamber. And like often what these types of men do, he, rather than apologising, went outside, doubled down and said worse things in the media, on Sky News, on the radio, and kind of, you know, assuming that I wouldn't do anything about it.
And I think that's a key thing in a lot of the stories in this book is the assumption that a woman will just have to either be treated well, engage with rules that are overtly discriminatory or bad, or be denied access to a certain industry, and that we would just quietly cop it. And in all instances, like yourself, have been like, you know what, I'm not just going to cop it.
No, but if I'm really honest,
you considered it?
I'd been copying it for a long time.
Yeah, right. Okay,
I'd been copying it for a long time, and I'd copped it and I'd copped it and I'd copped it, and to a point where it had started to work. I'd started, I'd limited the amount of time I'd spent in the chamber. I would limit what I'd say. I'd limit whose policies I'd call out. Like it had started to have an impact on the work that I was doing, this kind of sexualised harassment and bullying. And so when David Leyonhjelm said what he said and then went on radio and television and doubled down and said that I'm known for having lots of boyfriends. I mean,
and so what if you were? But anyway, it's just...
Frankly, I was too busy doing my job. But yeah, it's got nothing to do with it. Absolutely nothing to do with it. And so I really felt at that point I had to do something because I had been copying it and it was so public. The media were running it. It was, headlines, newspapers, and I called it out. And because I'd called it out, you got more attention.
And that's the thing. And then women run the risk of being told, oh, well, you're just bringing this attention onto yourself. You're making it worse.
Yes, all of that. I mean, I had some female parliamentarians, colleagues who said to me, I just don't think you should do this. I just don't think this is going to make it worse for you. And And that doesn't come from a bad place, right? That doesn't come from a bad place. But they were wrong.
Yeah.
Because that is what I'd done for years, and it hadn't gotten any better. It had gotten worse. It was starting to impact me. But it had become so. But when it was put in the media and become so public, I felt very clearly that I had a responsibility now to do something about it, to take that defamation action, because if I didn't, the sign that sends and the message that sends to everybody else, the young woman who's being harassed, behind the bar, the mum who's being harassed at the sports club, the high school girl who's copping sexist harassment from boys in her classroom. I mean, if they're seeing me being so publicly abused and see me not do anything, that says, well, you shouldn't do anything either.
Yeah, but
you need to cop this too.
But it was also at a time when, in the kind of post-Me Too years, defamation law, particularly in Australia, was being used against women who accused people of being sexual assaulters, abusers, rapists, all the things. And so it was actually having your story in using defamation law. Not only did it become the first case in Australia where a sitting parliamentarian successfully sued another sitting parliamentarian, it was also accessed by somebody who wasn't a wealthy film producer or a politician or a businessman who doesn't like that somebody at his workplace said that,
normally defamation has been used to shut down the woman accusing the man of the harassment, and because he was silly enough to go and say it outside the chamber, outside the realms of parliamentary privilege, that was my opportunity, and I had no other recourse. We don't have
employment. You don't have employment laws.
We don't have employment laws the way other workers do. So it was really the only choice I had. But look, and I won. But I totally understand that point around how long and hard it takes, and the cost.
Yeah.
It was by far the most stressful thing I've ever done. It did take a toll. But on the other hand, I actually feel really proud of what it meant, the message it sent, and I still have some of these letters, and there's one particular letter that I was sent, and I think I told you about this in the interview for your book, but from a father who was just so overwhelmed by it all, and he just said, "Thank you so much, because I just my daughter's copping this at her workplace, and I've been trying to tell her she needs to do something and she doesn't think she can, and finally today she said she will."
Oh, so that's...
and like that is social change.
Yeah. But I can see you. It still impacts you. These things don't stop hurting. They don't stop being hard.
No.
Even if you win.
No, they don't. And that's what's interesting about all this.
Yeah.
That even for the women who win, winning is a word. It's not actually it's not a destination.
It's not a destination.
Oh, Antoinette, we could be going forever on this.
Yeah.
I think we're both good talkers, but it's such important issues, and we're passionate about it. And I'm loving this experiment of the different roles. This has been so much fun.
It has.
So thank you. But I'm asking everyone who comes on this podcast the same question around, you're chasing change.
Yeah.
You want change in the way politics is done. You want change in the way we understand and engage with the media and how the media engages with the public. Are you optimistic that we can get there?
Oh, gosh. I don't know if I'm optimistic. I know that this work is necessary, and I know that people crave it, and that's evidenced by the audience. Our audience at Media is growing, and the people who reach out to us and come to our shows and listen. There is a real appetite. People realise how high the stakes are. I don't know how I'm optimistic in the power of people. I'm not particularly optimistic in those who have power want to relinquish it. And so I think it's going to take some real collective action to bring about that change.
Well, I hope that, engaging in these different and new forums is one way of helping people be sparked to thinking that they deserve better.
Yeah,
actually.
and business as usual is not okay, and things need to be done differently. We don't know if this is it or what I'm doing is it, but business as usual is not okay.
Yeah, so we've got to try. We're going to try something different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.